family should decide to move to a different home, chances are moving men with a big truck would come and take most of your furniture for you. Then you and the rest of your family would get in the car and have a comfortable drive to your new address. Your move would be very easy compared to what it might have been back in the 1840s and 1850s. At that time, many Americans wanted to move to the far west of our country. They wanted to start new homes in Oregon, California, New Mexico. The trip could take as long as 6 months. I mean, that's half a year. Most of the pioneers going west traveled in covered wagons pulled by oxen. Everything they thought they would need had to be piled onto or packed into the wagon. Tools, bedding, furniture, clothing, food that wouldn't spoil. Their farm animals would follow along behind. The pioneers did not try to make the trip west alone. It was too dangerous. They joined together with other families in what was known as a wagon train. Each wagon train had a leader and usually a guide, someone who'd gone over the westward trail before. Our story today is about a family traveling the trail to Oregon. Mrs. Van Antwerp is taking her daughter Charlotte and her son Bert to meet their father. He had gone on ahead with another older son to try to find a place for the family to settle. Bert's most precious possession on the trip was a gold watch of his father's. I think it must have looked a lot like this old one that I found up in the attic. Charlotte's most precious possession was her cat, Moses. He was little and black with white paws. He had one blue eye and one green, and Moses was a mischief maker. Because of his mischief, he nearly lost his life several times on the trip. That's why our book is called 9 Lives of Moses on the Oregon Trail. One night, when the pioneers were bedded down in their wagon train camp on the prairie, Charlotte was wakened by the weight of Moses, tense and heavy on her middle. He was growling at something out in the blackness. Charlotte got up and peered out into the dark. Nothing moved in the camp. No wolves howled. But suddenly Charlotte heard the frightening sound that had awakened Moses. It was a low, steady roar that filled her ears and shook the earth beneath her. She didn't know what the sound was, but she was certain it was full of danger. She must wake someone. Stumbling over the ground, she came upon the first sleeper, their guide, Mr. Smithers. He was rolled in a blanket before the ashes of a fire. Charlotte shook him.
Mr. Smithers, wake up! Listen!
He was on his feet in an instant. The roar could mean only one thing. He fired his rifle into the air, calling,
"A stampede! Buffalo! A whole herd coming right our way!"
The men of the camp jumped from wagons or threw aside blankets. Guns in their hands, they ran toward Mr. Smithers. Mr. Smithers ordered,
"Children, stay in the wagons. Ladies, build a row of fires fast as you can, right to the south of the wagons. Boys, inside the circle with our animals. Men, come with me."
The roar in the dark grew louder. It seemed as if the circle of 16 wagons was about to be taken over by the terrible noise. Then there came 6 rifle shots from out in the darkness. Oh, they were tiny sounds against the roar of the stampeding, bellowing buffalo herd. And yet, there was a change, a pause in the pounding hooves. Something out there had made the buffalo stop for a few seconds. When the stampede began again, the herd had split into 2 parts, one part passing to the left of the camp, the other to the right. By daylight, the last of the buffalo had disappeared. As the women stirred up the fires for breakfast, the men returned dusty and red-eyed. They carried buffalo meat and the hides of 6 buffalo. Everyone crowded around to find out what had happened. The leader of the wagon train said,
Let Smithers tell you. It was his miracle.
No miracle on my part. Only thing to do is check 'em in their rush, or it's goodbye to whatever's in their path. We checked 'em by shooting their leaders. The dead critters in their path and the fires burning round the wagons made 'em stop just long enough to split 'em into two groups and leave us safe in the middle. What does beat me, though, is what a narrow escape we had. If we'd have been 5 minutes later in waking up, we couldn't have stopped 'em in time. It's thanks to little Miss Charlotte here that we're all alive to tell the tale. How come you heard 'em coming and the rest of us sleeping on?
Everyone stared at Charlotte.
I didn't hear them either. It was Moses. He woke me, and then I knew it wasn't right. I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had to get you or someone quick.
Mr. Smithers shook his head and scratched his whiskers. Then he said,
Well, now, it does seem as if that mischievous little black feller has some use to him after all.
Moses is not so helpful in our next story. One day, Charlotte was exploring around a river when she heard the angry cry of an Indian, mingled with the hissing and spitting of a cat. She rushed to the sound. Except for the anger on the face of the Indian and in his voice, Charlotte would have laughed. The angry chief was handsomely dressed in clothes that members of the wagon train had traded to him for fish. A tall black silk hat, a vest, and a cutaway coat. The chief wore these and nothing else but his breechcloth. Standing at the water's edge, the Indian held the spitting cat in one hand and his fish-skinning knife in the other. His little girl was holding a partly eaten fish, obviously Moses's work. As the chief was about to plunge the knife into Moses's throat, Charlotte ran forward and snatched the cat from his hands.
No, no, you can't kill him.
The Indian turned an angry look on Charlotte. She bravely stood her ground. Just then, Mr. Smithers came running up, followed by Charlotte's pale, anxious mother and her brother Bert. Mr. Smithers spoke to the chief in his own language, and the man grew calmer. But the Indian replied in a long and forceful speech of his own. Shaking his head, Mr. Smithers turned to Charlotte.
He says, Missy, that your cat's a thief and ought to be punished.
Tell the chief, tell His Majesty, tell him I don't think Moses was being a thief. He was just being a cat.
The guide told the Indian what she had said. The chief looked at Charlotte. The anger left his eyes, and after a moment he laughed and spoke again. Mr. Smithers told Charlotte,
The chief says you're a right smart young'un, but he reminds you that in being just a cat, Moses stole and spoiled his fish.
I know it. Please tell His Majesty that I'm sorry.
She waited anxiously while Mr. Smithers and the chief talked. Finally, Mr. Smithers turned to her.
You've really rubbed his fur the right way with this Your Majesty business, Missy. But he says the fish was his best catch and he was fixing to make a feast for his little daughter.
I'll try to pay.
Just then, the little Indian girl dropped the fish and ran to look at Moses. She said something to her father, and he bent to examine Moses. Then he talked in an excited manner to Mr. Smithers.
He says, Missy, that your cat must have magic in him with them odd eyes. So if you'll give the cat to him, he'll forgive the stealing.
Charlotte thought her heart would break. Moses lost to an Indian? Oh, she knew she must not cry. She stepped forward, holding out the cat to the Indian as she spoke.
Tell him I think the magic in Moses turned bad and makes him scratch and bite. But if he wants to risk it, I suppose he has a right to take him.
True to his mistress's words, Moses lashed out with his claws when thrust near the Indian. The Indian jumped back. He looked at Charlotte with admiration. He spoke then at great length to Mr. Smithers. Mr. Smithers turned pale.
He says, Miss Charlotte, that you're the wisest female he has ever known. He says that you have even greater magic than your cat. And so he'll take you in exchange for the damage your cat has done.
Charlotte's mother gave an angry murmur. Mr. Smithers warned,
Guard your feelings. He dotes on that little girl of his, and he gives her the best of every catch. Her mother's been dead a long time now, and he thinks Miss Charlotte will make the best stepmother in creation for his little girl.
Charlotte's mother began to weep. Just then Bert stepped forward. He took his father's watch from a pocket. He opened the gold watch and studied its face.
Tell His Majesty that her magic has gone sour like the cat's has. Go on, tell him.
The chief listened to Mr. Smithers with interest, watching Bert and the gold watch gleaming in his hand. Bert went on.
Tell him, in case he doesn't know, that a female whose magic has gone sour is even worse than a cat whose magic has gone sour.
Bert, how dare you?
Charlotte ran to her brother and shook his arm hard. His only answer was,
Tell him he can see what I mean.
The Indian looked at Charlotte with less admiration now.
Now tell him that he looks mighty handsome in those nice clothes. But tell him one thing is missing, a nice gold watch to fit into the pocket in his vest.
Bert stood dangling the watch by the chain while Mr. Smithers spoke and pointed out the empty watch pocket.
Tell him he can take Charlotte in payment for the fish. I agree he deserves payment. But tell him if he doesn't want to risk a female gone sour, I'll buy her back, paying him the watch.
Mr. Smithers spoke to the Indian, who reached out for the watch. Bert showed the chief how to open and close the watch, how to wind it, and how to use it as a compass. Bert and the Indian and Mr. Smithers shook hands. Then Bert took Charlotte by one arm, his mother by one arm, and with knees shaking, the three walked back to their wagon. The stories we heard came from 9 Lives of Moses on the Oregon Trail by Marion Archer. Angry Indians and buffalo stampedes were just 2 of the dangers faced by the pioneers traveling the trail to Oregon. Wagons overturned. Sometimes people were swept away in the rivers they tried to cross. There was much hunger and sickness. But aren't we lucky that there were people who would try to make that trip west? They settled new lands that truly stretched our country from one ocean to the other. I hope that you will be coming back very soon for another story about America's past. I'll look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye.
The preceding program was made possible by a grant from the Ohio Department of Education.